Good evening. Actually, it looks lighter in the picture than it is. It's dusk here, but it's Joyful Christian Hermit. And I found this, I love this. It's from her Book of Divine Works, Hildegard of Bingen. She was 12th century for most part, 12th century abbess, doctor of the church, Benedictine, and also a mystic. And she was just wonderful. She got herself into trouble. She had a monastery and all the other all the other convents were wearing dark heavy cloth and cold and drab and lots of scrubbing the floors and penances and things like that. And she was the abbess and decided, well, if we're brides of Christ, as religious sisters, we're supposed to be brides of Christ, we should be joyful, rejoicing. She was very creative, Hildegard was. So they wore gossamer gowns and like brides, bridal or bridesmaids gowns, and would wear halos of flowers, rings of flowers in the spring and the summer, rings of flowers in their hair. And they'd dance and they'd sing, and it was just a total different approach to religious life than what had been, and obviously what was after. So it caught, and she had also, she was an herbalist. She had gifts of healing with herbs, and they had, healthy foods. They didn't do heavy fasting, but they grew their vegetables and had herbs in them, taste and flavor, chicken broth and things, chicken with it. So she was way ahead. And she was one of those clouds that's between God and between earth, between the temporal lights and between God, but reminding of the spiritual and of love, that God is love. And we are Christ. We belong to Christ. So, it's a point of rejoicing, not of, heads down and loads of penances. My spiritual father said, don't take on suffering. He says, God brings you enough on your own. He says, don't ever come up with something you're going to do as a penance. And he has been proven right. He's deceased now, but I'm sure he knows what went on the last 2 weeks. Because it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow morning. But doesn't seem that long somehow, and in other ways it seems longer. But God will lead us. God will lead us, and God doesn't. He has enough. We have enough suffering. We don't need to bring it on ourselves. Do things to ourselves. Fast excessively, and there's so many fasts that don't involve temporal items. Fasting from bad attitudes or fasting from unkindness, things like that. So anyway, she was more on that line, on that mental thought and spirit. And she also wrote songs. You can find some of her songs, I think, on YouTube. I have a CD. I still have a CD player. If I get it hooked up, then I can listen to my music. And a CD called Feather on the Breath of God. That was one of her songs. And, they're sort of ethereal, high-pitched, she sang it, she had a broad scale, a broad range of her voice. And she encouraged the women to sing, her sisters to sing. And she also invented the harpsichord. I know I've mentioned this before, but I think it's good to keep in mind that, but then other convents, the other sisters' word spread, and the other abbesses were fit to be tied. But here was, because everybody wanted to be like Hildegarde's, they, well, the abbesses would poo-poo it, and say it was scandalous and terrible and whatever, and they complained to bishops, and sure enough, the bishops started investigating. They did an investigation of Hildegard. How was she nuts? Was she even legitimate, religious, because of what she was doing? And it was just so oppositional to anything else that they'd ever done, they'd heard of. It was outlandish. It wasn't the hard and self-punitive and bedraggled and causing ourselves suffering and beating themselves and all that. And they had these beautiful gowns, and they'd dance and sing, and they'd have a feast, the wedding feast. They really lived the scriptures. They lived the Song of Songs. So, but they found her to be wonderful. It was bad for a while, and she was removed, and I don't think she was in prison, but maybe just removed, probably put in her cell to stay. Wasn't allowed to be an abbess anymore. But then some bishop realized, no, she's actually doing it right, leading correctly, according to scriptures and in love. God is love. And, the joy, the peace, the kindness, all that. So she was reinstated and continued on doing marvelous things. And she wrote her Book of Divine Works. It's called that, Book of Divine Works. I think she had ecstasies. I have her book here, this big book on Christian, Western spirituality, and it's her, a biography of her, and then all of her, the Book of Divine Works is in it. So I want to start in on that, but this is what she wrote. It was from that. Man united to God penetrates the entire world. Man in the structure of the world is, so to speak, in its center. Man, in other words, has more power than other creatures that remain in the same structure. Man in the center of the world, the structure of the world, in the structure of the world, all that together, has more power than other creatures that remain in the same structure. However, because if he is small by his stature, he is great in the energies of his soul. That's humankind. They're great in the energies of the soul. The head lifted and feet well planted, it is able to move the elements from above like those from below. She's getting mystical here. She's getting spiritual. The works of his hands, humankind's hands, who are so connected with earth, planted firmly with earth and with God, in the center, centered with God. The works of his hands penetrate everything because he has, through the energy of the inner man, the possibility of implementing this power. The body is greater than the heart, but the energies of the soul are powerful in power of those of the body. The heart is hidden at the bottom of the body, but the body is surrounded by the energies of the soul that extend to the whole world. Thus, it is through the knowledge of God, consciousness united to God, that the faithful one exists. She tends to God in the constraints of the spirit of this world. In all of its businesses, prosperous or opposing, it is to God that he aspires, humankind aspires. She switches back and forth with male and female pronouns. Sorry about that. In them, he never ceases to show God all the love and respect that animates him. A little bit more. I gotta scroll up. The soul contemplates from her eyes of the flesh the creatures that surround her, but by faith it is God that she sees. She recognizes him in all creatures because she perceives their creator. It's just so filled with love and joy and truth and beauty and goodness. So I like this, and I'm going to delve into. Now today I rested a lot. I didn't sleep. I needed to sleep, and I'm going to sleep tonight. But I got up, I did a load of laundry, walked around some, would get back on with ice on the back. And then I went outside to check because I knew things needed watering. I still have things in back to do, but I only went out in front. And I noticed the front yard had not been mowed, not for a while. So it was high. So I mowed the front yard. The old lady did. And it was very, very hard. I went out with the cane and got the lightweight little electric lawnmower out of the garage. Right there. The battery was charged. My grandson had charged the battery. And so I got it all hooked up. I used the cane. I took the cane with me, with the lawnmower. I just sort of hooked it up to the handle because I knew I'd be okay if I could hold on to the lawnmower and push with my legs. It's a lightweight little lawnmower and battery operated. So I did that.